For me, one of the hardest things about adulting has been friendships. Honestly, it has been really hard to make friends, keep friends, and sometimes even be a good friend. And I think, when you're young, you're placed in situations with people who are in a similar phase of life, like at school, or people with similar interests, like a sports team or a club. And then you have all this time when you're young. I mean, you think you're busy, but you're not really busy until you get a full-time job or you're married and have a few kids, right? I mean, as you grow up, you have more roles to play and less time, and friendship can be tough, but friendship is just as important because that need for human connection, that need to belong and be accepted and be known is still real. So today we're going to look at friendship and how Jesus goes about making friends. Jesus was really good at making friends. Everywhere he went, people wanted to be close to him and wanted to be his friend. And so today we're going to look at an encounter that he has in John chapter 4 with the woman at the well, or the Samaritan woman. So I encourage you to read John chapter 4. Today I'll be paraphrasing it. So the first thing we see is that Jesus goes from town to town. He's been traveling, meaning he's walking from town to town, performing these miracles and meeting with all these people. And some scholars actually believe that Jesus goes out of his way to get to Samaria. And that's where he meets this woman. So Jesus has gone out of his way and he's here sitting by a well at noontime when it's the hottest time of the day, and he's sitting there waiting for her. So you can imagine Jesus is tired physically and he's uncomfortable sitting under that hot desert sun, and he's just sitting there waiting. And we have to remember that Jesus is the busiest person on the planet, right? Like, he has 3.5 years to take these uneducated, untrained fishermen and turn them into missionaries to evangelize the entire world. So that's a pretty big task. He doesn't have a lot of free time, but he's sitting here waiting. And that's the first thing that Jesus shows us about friendship, that friendship is not about convenience. Friendship is about showing up. I work a full-time job where I'm on my feet all day and I'm around people all day. And by the time I get home after an 8 to 10 hour shift, I'm tired. And then I have 2 littles to take care of. And the last thing I want to do is get ready and go somewhere on a dinner date with a girlfriend. I am so tired. And that's most of our lives, right? We are all busy with our own lives that it's hard to carve out time for friendships. But Jesus shows us that friendships are about commitment. It's about consistency. Friendship is about going out of your way, about showing up for people, about waiting for people over and over again. The second thing that we see is that Jesus is sitting there by the well, and the Samaritan woman finally comes to draw water from the well. And you would think this woman, because this is her town, this is familiar town and culture and everything to her, that she would talk to Jesus, right? But she doesn't. She was just going to go get her water and leave. But Jesus initiates the conversation. I am an extrovert, but I will admit that when I go to like a birthday party or a bridal shower, if I don't know a lot of people there, I just usually go get my little cake and coffee and then sit with the 1 or 2 people I know. I'm more like the Samaritan woman. But Jesus teaches us here that we need to initiate the conversation. So a few months back, I actually saw these 3 ladies on Instagram. Randomly, they're not connected to each other. And I saw them and I was like, man, if we were in the same room, we would totally click and we would be friends. And so I did something that I would never do. I direct messaged them and asked them to meet me for coffee. And I was so scared that they would think I'm this creepy stalker person, right? And I was afraid they wouldn't respond, they would reject me. And it was totally out of my comfort zone. But I actually met all 3 of them for a coffee in person, face to face, and it went well. So we have to take the first step sometimes, and we have to initiate the conversation. And I love how Jesus does that here. He simply throws out a practical question. He says, can you give me something to drink? And oftentimes we think it has to be this well thought out conversation, but oftentimes it's just a simple statement or a question that can spark a conversation with another person. And I will admit, I'm pretty active on social media. And the post that gets the most comments are the ones where I ask a question. It's the ones where I say, hey, can someone help me find a good pediatrician? Or can someone teach me how to get the best, curl with this hairstyle? Or can someone teach me the best recipe for this dish? I think as women, we are naturally fixers and we want to help each other. And those are the posts that I usually get like 98 to 100 comments, not the ones where it's a picture of me or a verse, but the ones where I'm asking a simple, practical question, just like Jesus teaches us here. So the last thing that we see that Jesus does is he takes this conversation to another level, okay? He goes deep with her. As you read that conversation, you begin to understand why she's coming to the well in the middle of the day when it's hot and by herself, when in that culture, women usually came in a group in the cool of the day. We see that she was a social outcast and she was probably living a scandalous life. And I love how Jesus responds to it. I love what he does next. He entrusts her with his reality. He reveals to her that he is the Messiah. This is something he hasn't done yet, not even with the disciples. He has not told anybody else, but in this moment with her, he tells her, I am the Messiah. Transparency and vulnerability is what builds bonds that are beyond the surface level. See, we all have levels in our friendships, right? Like I have friends that I'd go to a movie with or I'll laugh with, but then I have another level of friends that I go deep with, the friends that I call when I'm going through something horrible or something amazing. They're the first ones that I call or I text because they get the real me. They get the, not the made up, the dolled up me, but the real me that goes beyond the casual surface level conversations and really goes deep. I'm not saying you should just go to a water fountain and just, stand there and overshare with the first person you see. No, that wouldn't be wise, right? And don't ever overshare because you want attention or you want to dominate a conversation. But I want you to be real. We need to be real and transparent and honest and raw with people because friendship happens, genuine friendship happens when we go from impressing people to investing in people. So today I want to leave you with a challenge. I want to challenge you to start today with a prayer. Ask Jesus to lead you to the person that you should befriend. Ask for direction and discernment so you can recognize the person that you should initiate the conversation with, that you should go deeper in your relationship with. And commit to being a good friend that will show up, go out of their way over and over again.